Okay. There we go. Should turn that. It's always precarious. Voila. All right. Let me go to the tab that has this beautiful music. Okay, the Schumann Cello Concerto. First movement, performed by Zushan Zhu on their YouTube channel. Show you that. Let's see. Now, if you're chronically online, you'll be familiar with ReactGate. Maybe, I don't know. If you're following Twitch commentators, ReactGate, more about ReactGate soon, but first I'll introduce the stream. Welcome to everybody watching live and everybody rewatching. Let's see, I have the wrong Chiron thing up here. We want to do this one right there. Voila! My name is Dallas. This is my stream. I call it Accordion Stream. I'm a accordion player in the Northeast, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York area, although I've lived over other places in my life. And I also teach a lot online. My website is risingreed.com, and I'm going to show you that right now. Let's see. We'll go right there. Hey, there's my name. I teach you stuff. Let's see. Let me make the thing a little bit. There we go. And nope. I want the option button. There we go. Okay. There's the whole website if you visit it on the desktop. You can also catch all of these live streams. You can rewatch them on my YouTube channel, Rising Reed. And if you subscribe there, It'll also show you when I'm live. But here are, if you go here, you can see the most recent videos. And then you have to go to YouTube has a separate channel called Live, where you see the most recent streams. And I've got all of these ones up there. So you can rewatch them there. You can also rewatch them on the Twitch channel. They're up for a week. And then I have to save them. And they go to a different category called, I think, clips or highlights, something like that. Okay, cool. So I hope everybody's having a good Tuesday. My Tuesday is good so far. I woke up, had coffee, and then just started prepping for the live stream, which takes many hours, especially considering I hadn't done my reading for this week's book club. We're getting closer to the end, though. I think only a couple chapters left, which is pretty cool. This has been a very, very cool thing and a nice deadline to have. So it's not going to be just me rambling about the book entirely for the whole 2 hours today. This chapter of the book talks about many different topics, and I found a lot of really interesting and insightful and inspiring stuff in there. And I collected a number of YouTube videos of musicians bringing to life the ideas and the words of the chapter. So we're going to be getting to that. How's everybody doing? Let me check in with the chat. See if we have very many people watching today. Hey. All right. Hey, Deb Peters watching. Thanks very much. Deb's commenting on she loves it when I let my hair down. It's getting pretty long. I think it might be time to get it cut. And I'm also sporting this very fashionable t-shirt that I got from the Swedish airline, Air Switzerland. I don't know, whatever airline it was. When they lost my luggage on my trip to Switzerland. Did I say Swedish? I meant Swiss airline. When I went to Switzerland for a string of gigs with my friends Linus Versch and Gizem, and they lost my luggage for I don't know a couple days, and so they gave me this T-shirt and a hairbrush and some toothpaste. And that's what I got. No money though. Anyway, here I'm wearing it today. Nice oversized on me T-shirt. That's what I'm styling. It's cooler today. We had like a lot of wind yesterday. I'm in the northeast of the United States. We had a lot of wind. It's been cooler. Before this, last week I was in the Mojave Desert of Southern California, and it was insanely hot. And so I think after this many years living here in the northeast, I'm pretty acclimated to the cooler temperatures, the more humid air, all that sort of stuff. It's more comfortable for me. Although, if it weren't a live stream, I would probably have another fan going. I just have the overhead fan. Not quite warm enough. Alrighty. So, now I have stuff to plug. So I'm going to plug stuff. So bear with me also. I have signups for my upcoming group classes. Why isn't this one red? I'll have to fix that. Or purple. Anyways. So, starting in September, I'm going to offer group classes for accordionists, which I have been doing for years and years. The last few months I took off. Let me go to my website here and I can show you. I don't have all the copy written. So if the brief description that I have now sounds good, go ahead and sign up following the links. I'll show you how to do that in a second. But over the next couple days, I'm going to finish up the more elaborate copy and break down the other classes so far. So on the website, risingread.com, here's how you can sign up and find out if these group classes fit your schedule and sound interesting to you. On the left side or up front, if you're on mobile, it will be a little hamburger menu that you have to press down. You want to go to group classes. That's pretty obvious. And then down here, I have the 4 group classes. Really, 3 of these 4 I'm offering, but I know what the 4th one is, so I decided to make a graphic for it and tell you the dates. So we have Slow Blues, which is going to be a very cool, it's going to be 8 classes over 2 months, so September and October. We're going to skip 1 week. And we're going to work on the tunes Route 66, which I chose because many people are familiar with the melody. The melody is not too hard to play, and it follows a blues form, which is great and allows for improvisation and fills and that sort of stuff. And then St. James Infirmary Blues is the other tune that we're going to be looking at in this 8-week course, which is not a blues in the sense of it's not written on a 12-bar or 8-bar blues form, but is a very bluesy tune, bluesy melody. Blues is in the name, and we want to play it like a blues with blues timing and stuff. One of the most important things that I'm going to cover in this 8-week course is blues rhythm, breaking it down, feeling it in your body, because if anything, blues is about feeling. And the feeling comes from a combination of, letting yourself go and playing deeply from your heart, which everybody can do. And that's something that I can encourage you to do, but I can't really teach. But I can create a welcoming space for you to try it and become more and more comfortable with it. But that needs to go on top of this sort of rhythmic language, which is like a 12/8 feel. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1, like that. And so we're gonna do a lot of cool, fun activities using our voice and our bodies, and of course our accordion. And all along the way, one of the big points I'm going to be addressing and making sure that we work on is the feeling of the blues. Because if you have that, then you can blues up anything you want. Any other tune, you can put that to it, as well as continue going into all the various, the huge ecosystem of blues, which it affects almost everything. Okay, the other class I'm going to be running, which I do intend to be running monthly now, but I'm only having a sign up for 1 month, or the sign up is limited. I'm just sign up for 1 month. That way you can see if it's the right fit for you or whatever. I didn't want to make it a more than 1 month long class offering, so that way I can choose a new topic and I can promote the opening again, because I think this is great for people who are new to my teaching, people who are new to accordion, people who want of sort of very low, they want a class and to be encouraged and to give some things to work on, but it's a pretty relaxed entry. It's because it's a group class, it's very much based on I should say this is my Beginning Beautifully class. Sorry, I'm not doing a great job of plugging all this stuff. But the Beginning Beautifully class, so it's where we talk about a lot of these fundamental ideas a lot of these things that I've been exploring in the whole history of the live stream since last October. Of course, things before that. I had a music life before that, but the Beginning Beautifully class is really taking my teaching and adding a lot of these, or focusing on a lot of things that I've learned from Jacques and Natalie, and ideas that become more apparent and present through the live streams, through my own exploration. So musicality, phrasing, sound, dynamics, feeling music, relaxation, tension, that sort of stuff. The prices for all this stuff is very, very reasonable. For the slow blues class, it's $159.99. For all 8 classes, that's very cheap. And I think $79.99 for the month of classes for the Beginning Beautifully. So those are the 2 group classes that I'm offering. After the slow blues class is over, which is at the end of October, I'm going to take 1 week off, and then the next Monday jazz group class, because this is like an extension of the jazz classes that I have been doing, that started back at the beginning of 2022, which is when I taught the first jazz manouche class. Then there was another jazz manouche class, and then there was another jazz manouche class. So there's been sort of 3 jazz manouche classes. Now I'm taking that idea and starting to expand out a little bit. We'll be back to jazz manouche specifically, but it's all related. So the next one is slow blues, which is starting in September, and you can sign up now if you follow the links. Then after that, to finish up the year, I thought it'd be cool to take 5 weeks and to do a class called Jazz Up Your Christmas Music, because Christmas music is especially receptive to being jazzified, to adding more chord symbols and embellishments and stuff. And it's a great deadline. You're not going to use it after the 25th. You better get it together by then. And it's, there's jazz music that pretty much, or there's Christmas music that pretty much everybody knows, and being very familiar with the melody makes it much easier to work with it and to do stuff with it. So for all those reasons, that's the class. The sign up is not live for that yet. It will be live probably in October. I'll set it to be live, and then the class will start in November. There's one more thing that I'm very excited about that is going to be starting, and that is accordion yoga. So accordion yoga is a 3 times a week class that I'm going to be offering for a super reasonable price. It's going to be connected also with a membership to my website, where I will have access to course videos from previous group classes, which is going to be very, very cool. So anybody that's a current student or former student of mine should get this membership, because it's going to have all this supplemental video course information, and all sorts of like videos and materials I've made for students over the years that I've been teaching. So it's going to be this huge library of stuff eventually. It's going to start, little by little, because it takes a lot of time to put this stuff up there. So that's going to be that, and the accordion yoga will be the event that goes along with that membership. That membership is super reasonable, and this accordion yoga, I'll have much more promo information on it probably by next week. But it's designed to create technique always connected to the awareness in our bodies of the tension we're making, and then releasing the tension, relaxing the tension, whether that be musical or whether that be in between our playing, active ways to relax it. And so to manage and to play well without unneeded tension, of which there's a lot. It's also designed to have us have a still receptive place to focus on musicality. So this is designed to be doing it in the morning. It's designed to be like sort of a morning warm-up, and then hopefully as you get familiar and experienced with these ideas, that they will carry into your other practice. And you can show up as much as you want. You can show up with the membership. You could show up for all, every class every week, or just whenever you want. So that's coming, and all that's going to be good. The only one that I have the full description for right now is the Slow Blues class. So if you click on that from the group classes, if you click on Slow Blues, it works, and I have a description, and you can click the link and sign up. I'm offering two offerings of the Slow Blues class, the beginners and the advanced course, and then you can also sign up for the Beginning Beautifully class. Okay, enough of my plugs. What do I need to do? Go big. All right, cool. So that's it for the plugs. Let me check in with the chat, see if I lost everybody with my commercial. Nope. All right. I know. Deb, I'm checking in with the chat with Deb. Deb says, can you straighten that painting? I know. I feel like she's just like looking at me sideways, And yeah, the accordion yoga class is going to be cool. There's no like yoga to it. We won't be doing any yoga poses, but I thought that's the phrase I always had in my mind for this thing, about gently stretching and being very present in our bodies and making sound from that place. Cool. Okay, so let's get into today's main topic, which is, let's see where I have this. The Pablo Casals Book Chapter V. Where is that? Oh, yeah. Okay. So the name of the chapter is Insights for String Players. And this stream is called Accordion Stream. I'm an accordion player. You presumably are an accordion player, although maybe you aren't. That would be really cool if you're not. But there's insights for us too, I think. An interesting thing is that very often accordion players, it's helpful for us to think of the bellows as doing the same job as bowing. And in a lot of accordion music, not so much in North America or in the American accordion music that I've seen, but more like French accordion music uses the bowing cymbals to mark pull and push the bellows like that. And those are the cymbals that bowed string players use for down bow and up bow, which I think is very cool. And whenever I have work with people who are new to the accordion but experienced on the bowed string instrument, I always bring that up. I say, think about that. How would you bow this? It's very, very similar. We have you have a length of your bow, and like some of the very basic things that you consider when you're thinking about how is the bellows similar to the bow. Very basic things. when you move your bow, you have sound. When you don't move your bow, there's no sound. When you move your bellows, there's sound. When you don't move your bellows, there's no sound. No vibration of the air. We want our movement, whether it's the bellows or the bow, to follow the phrasing of the music. So if there's a place that I wouldn't want to interrupt the phrase, do, re, mi, fa, sol, say that's my phrase, I don't want to interrupt John, do, re, mi, fa, sol, right? And that would be, that interruption could happen if I wasn't thinking, or I didn't plan out the amount of room I had in my bow or my bellows, and I had to change all of a sudden, do, re, mi, fa, sol, because I ran out of room. Usually that happens on the close. Do, re, mi, fa, oh, I'm out of air. So, and then we have to say, oh, shoot, I can't keep doing that. So then you plan it out. Same thing for the bow. These are the ways that they're similar. Probably if you're an accordion player, this is not new information to you, and I don't need to go any further down. That's just very, very superficial information to kind of set the stage here. There's a lot of cool stuff. I read the chapter in its entirety. There's only a couple places that I think only one place really that I sped through, and that was about fingering, that I've really skimmed. I usually don't skim. I usually try to really read it. It's time consuming. But the little few paragraphs on fingering, I thought, well, this is not going to be super understanding the intricacies of how Pablo Casals did fingering is not going to be that useful to me. So let's start at the top of what is interesting. So at the top of the chapter, Casals talks about intonation. And right off the bat, if you're an accordion player, you're going to say, well, other than taking my accordion to get tuned by an accordion tuner, to make little scratches on the reeds or fix whatever is causing the thing to be out of tune, how does intonation relate, right, to me, the accordion player? And you might be surprised about what we're going to talk about here. So intonation means the in-tuneness of the note, right? So me as a singer, I have very poor intonation, although the more I work on ear training and stuff, the better it's going to get. The better it does get. But intonation. So what does Casals say about intonation? I have to check out my notes. Here's a wonderful pull quote. So this is in the book attributed to Casals himself. So check this one out. Intonation is a question of conscience. So your conscience. And then he says, you hear when a note is false the same way you feel when you do something wrong in life. How about that? When was the last time that you really felt like you did something like really wrong? I know the last time that I felt like that. But then I have many more memories of when I was a young person, especially a teenager and preteen, doing really stupid things and then realizing it. But that's very cool. So it's a question of conscience. All right. So Casals brings up this idea of expressive intonation, and I'm going to talk a little bit about it, and then I found a few wonderful videos of it, and then we're going to talk about the application of expressive intonation. So, and I cannot demonstrate this. I do not have the skills to do this. But expressive intonation is the idea that the intonation of a pitch, like say you're used to the idea of A440. Let's see, that's A5, I think, if you're counting the notes on the piano. Well, if you know what A5 is, then you know what A440 is. But it means that, you have a fixed frequency that you and the rest of the orchestra is all tuning to. You're tuning to the same thing. And then mathematically, that scale has been broken up and everybody understands what's the right intonation there. Like equal temperament, which is what we play, what Western music is played in. For the most part, these days, and has been for hundreds of years now. But expressive intonation is where or as Casals describes it, and these other instruments that you'll see in a second, is where the pitch changes, the musician changes the pitch, either deliberately a little bit more sharp or deliberately a little bit more flat to help the purpose of that note, right? And so why would you want to do that? Well, notes have a direction, or we can understand that notes have a direction. I'm going to mark this here. Let's see. I like this. I love bullets, nested bullets and stuff like that. So here, first idea, because that's going to remind me to update this. Because my Chiron overlay thing only has 4 that I can preset, but I need to do a bunch today. So if I said do, re, mi, fa, can you feel where the direction of that line is going, right? So I'm singing the first 4 notes of the scale of the tonality, whatever key I'm in, I don't know. And the do, re, mi, fa, that third note that I'm calling mi using solfege, it's leading to the 4th note that I sang, the fa. Do, re, mi, fa. I'm trying to deliberately go sharper, but this is one of the examples that Casals gives, is the gravity of the major scale, which is something that I talk a lot about when I'm talking about music theory. It's how I feel it also, is that in our tonality, in a major scale, for example, you have a total of 8 notes, although 2 are the same at the top and the bottom. And there is a natural gravity in there. So the notes naturally want to have greater or lesser pull to other ones. And there's 2 places in the major scale where there are half steps between mi and fa, do, re, mi, fa. And sometimes mi wants to pull up to fa. And in that case, Casals would say, make it sharper. Deliberately, musician, play it sharper. Not so out of tune, but more sharp, and still recognizable as the note itself. And that's the idea that the idea of intonation is relative. It's not fixed and absolute. And the other place would be up at the top, the 7th to the 8th note. So do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do. It's very, I do not have the hearing skill set to just sing deliberately sharper. I can sort of pull, but even that's hard. It's fun though, fun to try out these new skills. So those are 2 places that Casals describes to why, where and why, sort of rules. And his rule is generally, it's the direction of the notes. So when a note has a strong pull one way or the other, then that's when you want to do it. And so there are other places where the pull would be down. Do, si, la, sol, fa. The fa, in this case, is going down to the mi. Fa, mi, re, do. And Casals doesn't expressive intonation is not actually as I'm singing it, and I want to say that so I don't confuse the topic or misrepresent his idea. But it's the only way that I can do it. It would be to play the note entirely as a slightly different intonation, so deliberately a little bit more flat or deliberately a little bit more sharp, and to create the character of the note, to help the note do what it's supposed to do, which is the whole thing. That's the whole, the summation of all these things in the Casals book is we're always trying to do things to the music to help it do what it's trying to do more, and that's not in this chapter, but it's a summation. So let's go to, this is great. I mean, this is really, really where my format shines, because with YouTube, I can illustrate these, or I can find people who have illustrated rather. Which reminds me, I didn't talk about ReactGate as an aside. ReactGate is something that happened, I think, last week and the beginning of this week. It's just a reaction on some of the very large streamers on Twitch. There are people that have hundreds of thousands of people that watch them every day on Twitch, and they have huge activity and movement. And there's just recently been the start of a more popular dialogue that, like, how much can a streamer like me, how sort of ethically, how much should a streamer show of other people's content. And that's interesting to me because that's what I do on this stream, is mostly I show other people's content because that's the medium, you know. The news, you know, to use a metaphor, it's different. It's very different. I'm not saying it's the same, but the news is where you get some talking heads, some new information, but a lot of what you see on the news, not everything, but a lot is documentation of things that are happening. You know, a press conference, I guess you get a lot of actual reporting on the news too, don't you? So, well, the point of this React Gate is that there are some streamers that have been, or that are getting called out for playing a long form video, something that's 20 or 30 minutes long, not really adding very much to it, just watching it on their channel. And the objections are mainly coming from the people who are making those videos and saying, like, okay, now like 300,000 people just watched my video on yours, but I didn't get any credit for that. I didn't get any views. That I don't like that. You know, that stinks. You shouldn't do that. And if you do that, maybe you shouldn't upload, you know, my 30-minute video with your very minimal commentary onto the streaming platforms, because you're basically stealing my content. That's really interesting. And it's giving me pause to think. If I adopted that completely, 100%, then I wouldn't be able to do this stream like I have been doing. It wouldn't be like a let's watch together stream, you know. So I need to keep reflecting and seeing sort of what the zeitgeist is saying, and I don't know, all that stuff. But it's something for consideration. And so to that end, I want to do a better job at crediting the channels, deliberately saying the names of the channels, and pointing out you know, what channel we're watching, and promoting you to watch them and follow and subscribe to them as well, because all these channels that we watch have lots of other fantastic videos. So this is just sort of a meta commentary on this whole thing and how it's constantly evolving, and we're an ecosystem and creators and other creators and all that sort of thing. Things are always changing. Okie doke. All right, so back to this idea of expressive intonation. So the first video that I have prepared for us is Ming Shi, who's exactly talking about expressive intonation. I'm gonna go to that right here. Whoa. Copy URL. There we go. Sorry, guys. Okie doke. And let's see. I'm gonna move this up there. That way we can see the YouTube channel. Ming Shi. I should subscribe to Ming's. Okay, so here's Ming talking about expressive intonation.
Expressive intonation. Now, when you get very advanced, there are certain things that you can do with intonation that can add expression and artistry to it. That requires your ears. If your ears hear a note sharply, then the audience will hear it more sharply, because it will tend to make the note just sharper in sound. Let's see. Let's try that. Remember, first of all, that a D flat and a C sharp is not actually the same note. But in order that we can play together in chamber music and with the piano, we need to use tempered pitch. But now, here comes the interesting thing. If we're playing solo, or even...
So tempered pitch meaning the equal temperament, which is equalizing the amount of out-of-tuneness.
Even if we want a C sharp to sound as if it's leading towards the D, we can hear it more like a C sharp rather than a D flat. I'll show you what I mean. Okay, I'm going to play one note, that C sharp D flat, And then I will try to hear it higher and try to hear it lower. Here we go. Now hear it higher. Now I'll try to hear it lower.
Sorry, I keep muting myself. I don't need to. A lot of these examples, I honestly don't hear them, and I'm trying to. I only found them this morning. I'm really interested in the chat if you guys hear it too. We're gonna watch another one, another video after this with a great, and the violinist plays it 2 ways, and he says, listen very closely, and I don't hear it. And that's because I guess I don't have that talent, nor have I actively tried to cultivate it.
You see, it actually changed it slightly. But I didn't move my finger. I just heard it differently. That's what makes violin playing artistic. If you hear notes higher, in Mozart, for instance, we need to hear it a bit higher. It sounds better that way. Then we can do that, and we hear it that way. If we want to hear a note lower, like a flat sound to make it sound dark and menacing or dark and difficult, then we hear it low. So let's take a D flat on the G string. That'll give it a low. If I want to hear it as a C sharp, sounds different. See? It's all different.
Huh.
That's
that one
what
I feel like
we
I hear a little
do
bit more.
in order to change the pitch, to bring out the function of a note. And
Although I'm positive I couldn't tell you. If you asked me, do those two sound different, I would say yeah. If you said why, I wouldn't be able to tell you. Or I wouldn't have said because one way is slightly lower in intonation.
to make the expression more clear and more artistic.
Awesome. And Ming has a bunch of great videos. All right. The next video is for this. Let me check out the chat too, because this is great. So, oh man, Dober Vieter, yeah, Dobie. I'm gonna call you Dobie. Asks about how about alterations? Does this gravity rule apply to them too? Tell me more what you mean about alterations. In general, yeah, like if we're talking about tonal music, and there are even people that don't believe there's such a thing as atonality. There are other kinds of musics that don't explicitly deal with fixed pitches, but for all tonal music, it is various forms of gravity. The more chromatic we get, the more that there are sort of, you could think of it as many overlaid tonalities happening at once. So, for example, borrowed chords, borrowed keys, which sort of gets more complex, or you can just think of it as moving more and more toward chromaticism, which is the big sort of change in quote-unquote popular music of the 20th century. Classical music before that had done, explored more chromaticism, but as far as the kind of chromaticism that we think about in 20th century pop music, Broadway, jazz, that sort of stuff, that didn't happen until the 20th century. But the gravity still applies to that. And in terms of like, just if you're still on the chat and still watching, just tell me more what you mean about alterations. Okay, so now to this other. Oh yeah, here we go. In C, C-dur, you could have F sharp, let's see, leading to G, or G sharp leading to A. Yeah, exactly. So it's the direction of the line. So if the F sharp is going up to a G or up to a G sharp, both of those. I think the example from Casals, let me open up the chapter in the book that has that. 1 second. Because I am reading this book in paper and then also online on Scribd. today I just did everything on paper. But if I go to the script version, let me find the example for you guys to see, and that'll help too. But the examples are like, let's see. He talks about the tetrachord as an example. Here we go. Okay. Oh. Here. Okay. All right. So here's the tetrachord as an example, and I have a video on the tetrachord. So the tetrachord is it's this idea that's pretty cool, that in the 7-note major scale, where the 8th note is the octave, it gives a symmetry and a mathematical and shape-based understanding of the gravity of the major scale, or one point of the gravity of the major scale, one place that it does that. So this is showing with the numbers here in tetrachord 1 and tetrachord 2 that you have, interval-wise, you have the same shape. You start on a note, and then you have a whole step and a whole step and a half step, and those 4 notes are the tetrachord. So you starting on the note. So in this case, starting on the note D, whole step to E, whole step to F sharp, and then half step to G. Okay, that's the first tetrachord. Then the second tetrachord starts a whole step above that, so on A. So A is your starting note, whole step to B, whole step to C sharp, and then a half step to D. And in that way, you have this symmetry. They're mathematically, they're the same, and numerically, they're the same. And you can fold the thing in, well, you can't fold it in half. Well, yeah, I guess you could fold it in half, and it's a mirror. So no, it's not a mirror, but you could chop it in half and stack it on top of each other. Anyways, you can see that. And then we sing it, we can feel it. Maybe this is we're willed to do this, or maybe this is physics, but regardless, it is do, re, mi, fa, do, re, mi, fa. You can make it lead there. And then sol, la, si, do. That's the big one, which gets named the leading tone. That's what he's talking about here. So in the example, let's see if I can highlight it. So I'll read verbatim what's written. If the semitones are placed higher, the immediate tones are affected. They must adjust accordingly. Consequently, the 2nd and 6th degrees are inclined slightly upwards. So the 2nd degree is moving to the 3rd. Oh, that's different than what I'm saying. The same idea, but a totally different place in the scale. Oh boy. Okay, so the E and the F sharp. Okay, so the whole thing is moving. So it's not just the 3rd degree; it's the 2nd and the 3rd degree. So the 2nd, 3rd are drawn up towards the 4th. So the E and F sharp are drawn towards the G. The B and C sharp are drawn towards the D. And then up here, let's see. Yeah, that doesn't help us. And then in minor scales, I like this. This is great. You can't see it. Sorry. Here's the next page. In minor scales, the attractions are somewhat altered, yet always in accordance with the same principle. So in this case, it's still diatonic, but it's another example. That's the Mozart example, right? So that Casals would say, okay, in this example, that E flat going to the D, that is leading that way. So the E flat, you would lower the intonation of that. You'd start with a lowered intonation, so it's closer. It feels it's closer already, which I think increases the tension. Okay, let's watch. Or here, I'll check back in. Cool. All right. I hope that answers your question, Dobie. And honestly, beyond that, I don't know much more. Because as you can see, I already misunderstood the the first thing. I'm learning about this sort of stuff. but the examples given are where there seem to be half steps, like the let's see. If I zoom into these examples, so for example, I think in what you're saying, let me go to your comments. The F sharp leading to G, G sharp leading to A, those are both half steps. In the Casals book, I think all the examples that are here by the author, David Bloom, are all half steps. So in the tetrachord example, it's leading to the half step tension. Here, the E flat to D, that's a half step. Here, what's listed is the D sharp to E, which is a half step. And then down at the bottom of the page, the A natural to the B flat. There's a lot of half steps here and chromatic ones. And so those would be non-diatonic. Those are not in the scale. Non-diatonic means a chromatic note and something that is not in the tonality that you're playing in. So if you're playing in the key of C major, anything that's not a white note, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, any flat or sharp would be non-diatonic. Just trying to be inclusive of all levels of prior musical information, because we're all learning, myself included. Okay, so let's watch another video on this expressive intonation. Where's my playlist here? Oh yeah, is it this one? Here we go. Okay, so this is I'm definitely going to try to promote all the channels we're watching. So this is Violin Masterclass, all one word, YouTube channel that has a lot of cool, very interesting videos that looks like they were filmed in the 90s on VHS.
We're practicing Pythagorean intonation on the beginning of the Mendelssohn Violin Concerto. Let's think in the steps of your key. In E minor, your characteristic intervals are the minor third, in this case a G natural, your minor sixth, which is a C, and in most cases a raised 7, which is a D sharp. So for the beginning of the Mendelssohn Concerto, you start on the 5th degree, and that's simply a perfect fifth to the open E string. So that's your 5th degree. Then you get low third, 1, 5 again, low third, 2, 1, low 6, 1, and the 5 again. Yeah. That will give you the characteristic large whole steps and narrow half steps for a Pythagorean scale. In some cases, you can make the half steps even narrower, and this way your playing becomes even more expressive. So let's try this step by step. You start with a 5, 3, 1.
I think it was actually the other video.
Most of the time, we use the Pythagorean system.
This is the
Any
video.
scale, melody, or passage with one line of music will sound cleaner with large whole steps, narrow half steps, large major thirds, narrow minor thirds, and high sevenths or leading tones. When we play double stops, we have to use just intonation. You will find that these two systems are not compatible, and sometimes you must make choices and compromises. Here is one example. The Greek mathematician Pythagoras discovered the intonation system we use today to play melodies and scales. His system provides us with the large whole steps and narrow half steps that lend expression to major and minor thirds and to leading tones. Here is the basic principle of that system. A Pythagorean whole step is constructed of 2/5 on top of each other. In our example, this leads from an open D string to A and to E.
Okay, so this is something that the piano cannot do, that I'm not going to go into why, and the accordion as well, when you have a large range to be able to play, and especially fixed intonation where you can't change. The violin does not have fixed intonation. It's not fretted, and so the intervals, the intonation is made every single time and can be changed.
If we take the E down 1 octave, we have a large whole step. The resulting E will be in tune as a fourth to the open A string, but it will be much too high to build a sixth as a double stop with the open G string. If we repeat the process from E to B to F sharp, we have another large whole step that provides a high major third in a D major scale. This high F sharp is not usable in a double stop with the open A string, but it sounds correct in the context of a scale or a melody.
This is new information that Casals doesn't talk about. He doesn't talk about this Pythagorean intonation, but it's the same idea in terms of the intonation of certain notes of the scale and the musical value of them. Okay, so let's go on to another video.
Let's talk about
by
intonation.
a different YouTube creator. This is this one. I want to watch Philip.
Let's talk about intonation.
Okay, this is Philip Pogatti, and he's a very phenomenal violinist that I found this morning. And so this is a long video about intonation and lots of different areas. And at the very end, it's exaggerating the characteristics. Exaggerating the characteristics of, let's see, of a melody, of a, what is it? Sorry, of a scale. So he's gonna do it on a minor scale, which is cool.
Rating the characteristics of a scale.
There.
Let's take the beginning of the Zigeunerweisen by Sarasate.
So this is exactly what we're talking. This is exactly what Casals is talking about.
You see what I'm doing is I'm really E flat really low, F sharp really high, and that just makes it so characteristic and so expressive. Especially in a fast passage, it just sounds way cleaner this way. So yeah, that's...
So in this case, we understand like this musician's use of it. The whole scale is ascending, but the certain notes of the scale he's changing. Let's hear that again.
Scale. Let's take the beginning of the Zigeunerweisen by Sarasate.
So it's a scale which is ascending, but he's saying that the E flat, he's playing flatter, and the F sharp, he's playing sharper, even though the direction of the line is going in one direction. Like the E flat is still going up to a higher pitch. He's still changing that intonation to give it more emotional impact.
You see what I'm doing is I'm really...
Which is something that's related to the note in the scale and not related to the fact that it's an E flat. Or yeah, it's related to like, okay, what's the scale? What's the harmony, you know? And then what scale degree is this? What is this doing both against the scale and against the harmony that's happening too. However we understand that.
E flat really low, F sharp really high.
D.
Thing is I'm really E flat really low.
Okay, cool. So I think this is really fascinating because it even though this is not something that we can do on the accordion, first of all, I think it's really cool to learn, more about what string players are doing. Very, very interesting, and it makes me hear more and appreciate more. And also, it's thinking about what the music is doing. This is all in service of the music to make the thing more musical, which is definitely what we're interested in. Okay, let's watch one more video, shall we? No, oh my gosh, it's an hour already. Okay, yeah, we've covered this plenty. Yeah, we talked about the tetrachord. I found a really great video on tetrachord that I want to show you really quick. That'll be on the YouTube playlist here. But it's not yet, is it? This is cool. So this is a combination of tetrachord and tuning, although I assume that this is equal temperament, which isn't the expressive intonation that Casals is talking about. Nevertheless, if it's a starting point, if you want a starting point, this is it. This is a fun video.
Sahar Galt here, and
Sahar Galt.
And we're going to do some extra intonation practice, building on the concept we worked in my last video. If you haven't seen that yet, check the link. The next challenge to master is maintaining our laser precision while singing melody. And to practice this, we're going to sing an important archetype of melody. Tetrachords, which are effectively a series of 4 notes in a row. Distance between each note in a tetrachord, of course, can vary. We're going to focus on those that naturally occur within the major scale.
Cool,
Perfect
ear training.
all of them, and you're well equipped to sing most stepwise melodies with exquisitely precise tuning. So let's get to it. If we build the tetrachord
fun.
that spans
It's like Guitar Hero.
1 to 4, we get this pattern of distances between the notes. Whole step, whole step, half step. This is sometimes called the major tetrachord.
I can let you watch the rest of that on your own, but I thought that was a very cool and potentially useful video for both for understanding tetrachords. Like we don't want to have the knowledge of something. We want to commune with it. We want to have the apprehendable experience of the concept, not just the knowledge of it. And this is how you get this, by singing the tetrachords and then listening for tetrachords, not just hearing the word tetrachord and going like, oh, it's a 4-note scale. Okie doke. So check in with the chat. Cool. All right. Okay, so to reply to Dobie's text, as I sang it, or your chat about, so Dobie says, isn't it just something like using glissando to the next note? As I am understanding it, the difference is that, like, as I sang it before I played those videos, I bent the pitch. That's not what Casals is talking about, and that's not doing the expressive intonation. Expressive intonation would be when you hit that note, you are playing it deliberately sharper than you might play the same, like say it's in E. Then if you're playing an E in the key of C major, and the E is going to an F, you might play that E deliberately sharper in that context than you would if you were playing an E in the key of E major. So in that case, you wouldn't make the intonation deliberately more sharp against the frequency of the starting point. Okay, so that's how it's not a glissando. That it's the pitch isn't changing while you're playing it. It just is sharper or is flatter. All right. So the next topic here in the chapter, it was a kind of a long chapter, and there's a lot of stuff. I know that I'm not going to cover all of it. Let's see. On bowing. Yeah, bowing. There's a lot of stuff on bowing. But do I have any? That's really funny. I don't have... Do I have videos about bowing? Let me see. Looking at my... No, not really. I didn't get examples for that. Okay. So, but nevertheless, I'll read some of the things that I pulled out. So, after that, the author, David Bloom, talks about bowing, And he says, Casals brought to cello playing a, quote, hitherto unimagined range of tone colorations. And we're going to get to tone colorations in a second. Or yeah, maybe we should do that right now. Let's get into the tone coloration stuff. So, this is a nice video that I found on tone colorations, which is my playlist. Find it right here. It's gonna be on my playlist now. All right, so we won't watch all of it, but again, something that we can kind of do or we can do to a certain degree on the accordion, because tone on the accordion is the result of the way that the reed is vibrating, and that vibration, to me, my experience of that vibration on the accordion is the tone, or the tone color, which we might call the timbre, sounds different if the accordion is played softly or very loudly, and all gradations in the middle. There are different tone colors there. However, that is a result of our dynamics, and it's not something that we can deliberately change, independent of the dynamics. One thing that we can do is we can also play not pressing the piano key down, or the button in the left hand, or whatever, the buttons of piano, whatever your accordion has on each hand. You can change the depth that you're pressing those. So if you press down all the way, the door is all the way open. All of the sound is escaping from the little hole, and we get a certain sound. As you press less and less down, that means that the door, like a door over a mouth, maybe I'll do this. It's subtle, very subtle, but it does change I think the tone color some, and that's something that and this year in New Orleans when I was there, I was working on with Jacques and Natalie was ways to. I was working on the first two-part invention on the freebass accordion. And that was something that we were using both the depth as a way of accenting, but also as a way of, they call it playing with relief, like a relief map that you might see in a nature museum, something like that. All right, so here, let's watch some of this video about tone and color by Chris Campbell.
Hi, my name's Chris Campbell. I'm a cellist, and I'd like to talk a little bit about color on the cello and how the bow affects that. There are three basic ingredients, and it has to do with the bow and where it fits on the string. Okay? The first aspect is point of contact, and we have this palette from the end of the fingerboard to the bridge. It's about 4 or 5 inches, and that's where an infinite variety of sounds exist. When you play over the fingerboard, the string is weaker than other spots, so you need to use a lighter bow. And you can activate the string with a fast bow and get great results. So this kind of pale, smoky color, it's great for French music, great for a lot of mystery in your playing. Now, if we move closer to the bridge, about halfway to the bridge, the string is stronger, and it supports more weight, and to get a good sound, the bow needs to slow down a little bit. This sound will project more. there's a lot of resistance from the string. So you can get kind of an edgy sound if that's what you want. You can get a very projecting sound. A very intense sound. So music has got so many different emotions in it that you need as many different colors of sound as there are human emotions.
Okay, and that's a great place to stop that. And so Casals talks about that, and in the chapter, he's quoted as saying, "Give variety to the bow. Let there be a whole bunch of different tone colors, and rather than just one or uniform, a lot of variety, and let it help the music express what it's supposed to be doing." I'll move on kind of through more, just because this chapter had a bunch of different ideas in it, sort of one after another. So another one that I thought was very cool and exactly ties in with the ideas of cinema, Jacques and Natalie, is the idea of the first note, and how important that is. Now for Jacques, it's the very first lesson that you get from his group class, where he's teaching you the fundamentals of his technique, and it's the sound of the first note. And that's something that they're always very, very important. And in that case, the first note means the very first note that you play to begin the piece. For Casals, he means that, but he also means the first note of a phrase. And I'm going to read a quote from here. This is a quote by the author in the book. So it says, he being Casals, he felt there are many occasions when the beginning of a soft and lyrical melody requires the articulation of a consonant rather than the pliancy of a vowel. And this is really interesting too, because this is also something that we have been talking about, how diction and language are similar, and they can help us understand ideas of music. So if I say ooh, that's all vowel sounds, and some of that is puffing. So if I don't want to do that, I should change my vowel sounds. A-E. Ooh, ah, ya, ooh, ya, ooh, ah. And there, I don't have to puff the air. The air can stay constant, which it can't if I'm just saying the same vowel sound. Ooh, it's not as good, not as effective, changing the vowel sound. But the consonant sound, the consonants stop the air, and they're literally called stops by linguists and speech therapists and stuff. Or plosives, like explosives, plosives. And those are the ones with the lips, the tongue, the various tongue in the mouth, and then the throat. So you have ba and pa, ba, 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 and attached to that can be any vowel. Pa, ka, ta, those are tongues, and g is a throat. G, k are throats. So that's it's just very cool to see all the things, unite and come together. So a very soft and lyrical melody. And why is that stated? Because sometimes we might be worried that it's going to ruin the phrase, that we want to start very, very softly. But Casals says, no, even though it's soft, you can start with a nice ta, like that. Okay, cool. Next here, before I go to more examples of cool videos that I found, bow changes. So changing the bow. So Casals talks about, here's a quote that I took out. We are sometimes obliged to make both changes within the written slurs. Let me say that again more artfully. We are sometimes obliged to make both changes within the written slurs, and we mustn't be too preoccupied about this. The changes must, of course, be intelligent and in good taste. Were you to have a long note or a crescendo, if you don't have enough bow, change it, meaning change the bow. You must not be the slave of the bow. This is something that happens to accordion players all the time, because our air is limited by the amount that we can open our arm and still have control, which is never the full length of our arm. We never go that far out because you lose control at that point. And then it's limited by how much air is in the bellows when you're closing. And that so often that seems to never be enough air. And so we work and work and work and do all kinds of things. That is like a forever project for the accordionist, I think. And this is saying like I think right before this, which I didn't pull out, but Casals talks about how the composer is composing the ideas, the music that they're hearing in their head, but they're not composing the music that they're hearing in the bow all the time. So meaning what they've written for you might not be playable in one bow or one bellow. So be artful, change it. I just brought that up because it's an exact similarity between the accordion and the violin. No big insight there. There is an interesting insight about the use of the bow, changing the bow, and they talk about in the case of a grace note, which classical music calls an appoggiatura, that changing the bow direction on a grace note is something that Casals did sometimes. And I love the way that Casals puts it. Instead of letting the note die, it has something. Let's see, where is that? It has something. So the second note, like the note after it. So let me say that again. Changing the bow, the note of resolution gains a certain subtle vitality. That's the better quote here, which is written by the author. The note of resolution, dee-dun, dee-dun, dee-dun. Even when I sing it, which one's louder? The note of resolution. Dee-dum, dee-dum, it's not dee-dum, dee-dum. I'm trying to sing a grace note. Da-dum, 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 da-dum. And there is a diminuendo on the note, but still, there's a vitality to it. Okay, cool. So then, speaking of diminuendo, I found some nice videos on diminuendo. So something attributed to him, diminuendo to the infinite. Diminuendo all the way. Which I like to think of in terms of relaxing the tension. So I can think of like, da, but that wouldn't be completely relaxing the tension if I let it all go. And to me, I like the idea of it like turning into a cloud, like a smoke and blowing away, or a dust, or just evaporating. That's a nice image. Da. And I feel in everything that I'm doing here, or if I had the accordion on, I'm feeling in my body, I'm feeling da, whatever the feeling of the supported note. Da. You cannot see, but I'm relaxing here. My bicep, my hands, and then I'm continuing to relax, mostly demonstrably for you, but also because I'm still connected to that moment. So diminuendo to the infinite. Here's a quote. He considered the fading away of a sound to be an integral part of a note's sonority, as does Jacques Mornet and Nathalie Bouchex. To continue the quote. When you do a diminuendo, especially on a long note, the diminuendo must go on to the infinite. Otherwise, the note is not completed. And I think this is like Zen in the art of archery, to think far. Zen in the art of archery, what I mean by that is you're shooting your bow at the target. You're not aiming to hit the target. You're aiming to hit a mile behind the target. Or you're not aiming to hit just in the bullseye, you're aiming to hit like some sort of metaphor of like the deepest into the bullseye that you possibly can. So you're sort of you're deeply committing to the thing that you're doing here. I found two videos. One is just, which I thought was cool. It's an opera singer who just uploaded a clip of her doing a great diminuendo, and I thought that's cool. So we're gonna watch that one first, and then I found a video which is not exactly related to the Casals chapter, but it is a video of comparing Baroque versus Romantic. Comparing decrescendo to diminuendo, which is not anything that's in the Casals chapter, but I think it's interesting consideration. And this happens to be in the context of Chopin music, but we'll watch a little bit of that as well. So here is the Jessica Pratt does a diminuendo on high E flat and a fast descending scale. And I think she does a diminuendo to infinity. Let's see what you say. Pretty badass. Let's hear that again. Maybe not quite to infinity, but very, very small. So cool. Oh, I just realized I'm not updating these. There's been a lot of things we didn't talk about. I don't even know what we're on now. Let's say 4. Diminuendo. All right. Cool. So let's check out some of this diminuendo. I like the title of this.
By
So
Hi Piano Cats. My name is Denis Zhdanov, and today
it's Denis Zhdanov. And we like Denis's channel. Here he is. It's about piano. And let's see. Yeah, it's not Chopin. It is Schubert. Okay.
today's video is dedicated to an interpretational issue. Many people believe that decrescendo and diminuendo are just synonyms. And that's true, but
that's my understanding of how they're used. In junior high school and a high school band class, which is where most of my fundamentals of music were learned, I was always taught to call it crescendo and decrescendo. That's always what it was called. Then later on, I think in college and beyond, I found people who referred to it as crescendo and diminuendo. And I thought, okay, if it's used the same, it must be the same, right? And I never heard anybody correct me. So let's check out Denis Zhdanov's exploration into
in
this.
fact, those are synonyms nowadays.
Nowadays.
But those terms were used differently by some composers.
Okay.
And knowing how exactly might help you to build a more convincing interpretation. To find an answer, we need to dig a bit deeper in smart books about music. For example, Robert Levin, a well-known specialist in historical performance practice, explains how those terms were used by Schubert. From 1975 onward, the general preface printed in each volume of the Neue Schubert Ausgabe, the new Schubert edition, contains the following paragraph. As a rule, Schubert distinguishes clearly between the indications ritardando, becoming slower, decrescendo, becoming softer, and diminuendo, bingo, becoming slower and softer. The latter is frequently followed, as in ritardando, by a tempo. It means that after diminuendo, in Schubert, you might actually see a tempo. Ritardando
There we go. Okay.
and diminuendo thus appear in the Neue Schubert Ausgabe as tempo indications. And then he also mentions that diminuendo is used by Schubert at the end of a section, where becoming slower might be helpful to show that the section is about to round up. Now let's look at the impromptu in F minor of Schubert and see how Schubert uses those indications and how this knowledge may benefit us. For example, in bars 39 through 45, we have an impressive climax, followed by a decrescendo, then piano, then pianissimo, and finally a new section which traditionally is performed slower, since it has just a very different and intimate character. So it sounds like that. And so on. Due to that, we would really need to take our time and to slow down a little bit in the bar right before the new section. because we obviously need to react on such a modulation and character change. But if we slow down too early, the transition from the climax to the new section will be way too long and boring.
Yes. He also took the tempo much
That
faster.
was
but
definitely
yes.
too much, especially because we are just in the beginning of this 10-minute long piece. So in this case, the decrescendo warns us not to slow down while getting softer. So we might then stretch the time where it is really necessary, namely 2 bars later.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. All right. The use of diminuendo, the use of tempo to set things up. This is cool. This is so cool. I'm just reflecting on how fun it is that how fun and interesting it is that this chapter, which is about string instruments, is really about music, you know, and how just the beautiful world of musicians on YouTube and exploring and sharing all these great ideas. It's very cool, and it's why I really enjoy it, and it's why I do these live streams. I'm interested in learning and sharing as I go. Okay, so next, this is a good one. I found some good examples here. So playing chords on the cello, which I think is great because this is something that me as a lay person who does not know very much repertoire for cello and other string instruments, classical music. It's an iconic sound of the cello, is the way the cello can play chords, very often broken chords. And so what I want to do is I want to get to that point. Let's see. Should I try to update this? Yes. Playing chords on the cello. This is annoying. I'm not going to be able to keep doing this, but okay. So in the book, where he talks about playing chords on the cello. Let's see, where is that? Not here. This is some of the stuff I skipped. This is the bowing stuff. Did I skip it? I don't think so. I guess I did. Ah, yeah. Here it is. Okay. All right. It's right here. So, oh no, that's about, sorry. Ah, here it is. It's before. That's the issue. There we go. Okay, this is fun to look at. All right, so Casals is talking about how to play these chords. And as an accordion player, I would think, well, the chord, like chord A, everything's stacked on top of itself, play it all at once. The only time I wouldn't do that is at the very end of a piece, you know, where there is a diminuendo, say, or at the very least a ritardando, probably a diminuendo though. And I slow down, and then for the very last chord, I hit the low note first, and maybe I roll it up, right? So if I'm playing stradella, I play the bass note first, then maybe the chord button, and then I break the right hand up into bum bim bum ba, whatever that is, right? Instead of playing all at once. But in general, you know, I'm thinking if it's written, I'm going to play it all at once. But on the cello, you cannot do this in many cases. On like these big chords can only be played rolled. And so then how to do it? And what we learned from the chapter is that what's conventional is what's here in the middle. I'll zoom into this. So if we first examine the notes of, let's see, this is from Bach's Third Cello Suite. We have like the first chord to play is 4 notes. It's a big C major chord, C, G, E, and C. And then the second one is a C7 chord, C, G, E, and B flat. And then the third one is looks like a suspended, like a C major suspended sort of thing. Or, it's an ornament, yeah. So we'd call that suspended. C, G, and then F to D, then resolving to the E. So dum da da do dum da do dum da. Okay. So here's what Casals would not do, which apparently is like the conventional thing. This is what most people would do, which is to break it up into these fifths down at the bottom and play it as jedum, a grace note. And I found a couple cool examples of people doing this. And play the fifths together, and then sort of as that's resonating, then play the bottom 2 and then play the top 2 on top after it. Sustain those, and then same thing for all 3, you can see. In the last example, it looks like that the G is tied over and the F is added. Okay. And then what Casals would do differently is, I'll make this even bigger so you can see it, is he would actually break it up, which I can do on the free bass here. Not the most resonant, but it's the lightest. C, G, E. What's wrong here? Oh, okay. No, here's C. Now I've got it. As opposed to, well, on this accordion, I can play it as written. That's letter A. That's letter B. And then letter C would be, let's see, where's my F? It's not that C. There, that's letter C altogether. The cello here, play. What's so cool is that it does sound like a cello when I do that, because I'm used to hearing them play that. And then, what is it? That's it. Right? So cool. But Casals would say, no, don't do that. He would do that, and then, right? Okay. So, I found an example of not this piece, the Bach Cello Suite, but just a different example. So here's, no, that's not the one we want. We want, let me find it here. Oh, yeah. Okay. And this would be an example of what Bach, or pardon me, what Casals would say not to do. Don't do this. I need another scene set up for the script book. Sorry, guys. A little fidgety. Doing my best. Okay, so, yeah. This is Sheila Jones. Sheila Jones. And she's going to show us
playing chords on the cello. If it's a 3-note chord, for instance, G, D, B, you play the bottom 2, followed by the top 2. So
Yes.
you can just about play all the ones, but it doesn't really work so well. It's a 4-note chord.
It's cool too how she pulls the sound to the top note. It's not that's something I immediately notice when I try to copy her right now. It's got a crescendo, which I don't think I wouldn't have done or found. I would play like that, which is flat. Don't do that. It's so much more exciting.
Bottom 2, top 2. And it's always from the bottom because it doesn't sound quite right. Doesn't sound right, but
So it's always the bottom to the top.
it sounds very forceful, and that's what you're doing at the beginning of the Brevard Sonata. Or if you were doing the Elgar Cello Concerto,
We've looked at this one before, the Elgar Cello Concerto. We have watched this on multiple live streams as part of the Casals Book Club.
which starts with that again, doesn't sound.
So she's saying when you need to break a chord up like that, you always roll from the bottom with the low notes up to the top. And that's what Casals says is he prefers his way because you can hear the root of the chord more clearly that way, whereas when you play it with the fifth, it gets buried. So I have, for another example of this exact music, I have this video, which was very cool to find, which is also not on my playlist, but I have the link here. There we go. It's the great Yo-Yo Ma playing the Bach Cello Suite Number 3, Sarabande, and that is exactly the excerpt that is written here from in the book, this exact piece, and so we're gonna see how does Yo-Yo Ma perform it. So how did he do it? Do you hear one note first or two notes? And what do we hear? One note. Yeah. So we hear just the bass note. So he is playing this as Casals described. Cool. I thought that was very cool to find such an authoritative figure, musician, and it not to be on a record which has been uploaded to the streaming services. Lucky me. Lucky us. And just to plug Yo-Yo Ma, he's got a great YouTube channel. And he did this, back in 2020, I think. Already. So what's next on my list here? Let's see, we did that. Trills. Okay, cool. So, coming on to trills. Let me check in with the chat here. Do we have any new chats? Nothing over there. Nope. Okay, cool. So everybody's just watching. So, all right, now talking about trills. So, I thought this was pretty cool because I have not worked on my trills very much, nor have I ever thought about trills. And not surprised, interesting and informative, but not surprising to read. Trills are also the subject that we have to squeeze every drop of juice out of the fruit, you know. So there is not just a thing as a trill. It's always situation dependent. So here are some things I pulled out, and then I found some cool videos on trills. So let's see. Casals says, in a slow movement, the trills should not be too rapid. Cool. So that means in a faster movement, they can be more rapid, right? Should they be? We don't know, but they can be. A A long trill should not remain on one dynamic level. This is cool. So you treat it, so think about creating either a crescendo or a decrescendo. So that's what he's, although he says the word diminuendo to mean decrescendo. In general, we must make a crescendo or a diminuendo. I can't sing a trill. I can sing the same sound, but that's really hard to do. Trying to make it get faster, get louder or softer, but you get the idea, which is pretty cool. He says the beginning of a trill will usually receive an accent. Da, da, dee, da, dee, da, dee, da, dee, da, dee. Very cool. And then he talks specifically about Baroque trills, and there are rules for Baroque trills, which I thought was pretty cool. Before we get to those rules for Baroque trills, let's check out this Augustin video, which I actually had prepared more of him. His channel is great. I prepared more videos of him for the expressive intonation stuff, but we didn't need to watch them. Here's Augustin talking about trills.
Hi, this is another
And I think he demonstrates this very beautifully, even changing the speed of the trill.
Augustine. Today I'm going to talk about trills. Trills are actually one of the things that I often start my day with. When I warm up my hand, I find it kind of helpful to just do some
So changing the speed of the trill is very, very expressive and cool. Make sure that I have this saved. And that's interesting to use that as a warm-up.
some trilling, not going too crazy, pretty relaxed, but it helps me kind of warm up the hand. And I think it's important to actually build some stamina for trills. And also have a way of trilling that's not too tight, where you're not kind of like going crazy, but where you find the motion that's actually that can actually be quite relaxed, more like a kind of like reflex that doesn't cost something like this, that doesn't like cost a ton of energy. Sometimes in some pieces like the Beethoven concerto, you have trills that go on for a very long time. You just keep going and it's like so trilling enough just to build a little bit of stamina is very helpful. It can be possible with trills of minor seconds to actually keep the motion quite minimal and add in a little bit of vibrato. So it's actually a combination of the finger moving and the vibrato. So it's like this. And that can help actually.
Cool. Okay. So then when getting into Baroque trills, this is cool. When I searched for Baroque trills to try to get some, audio, video examples of this to bring this to life, to understand the ideas of the chapter more, what I found was a lot of stuff that was about. I didn't find a lot of videos specifically about just trills, but I found a lot of stuff about various Baroque ornamentation, which is really fascinating and interesting. So let's watch a couple broader topic videos here. This is our friend Robert from Living Pianos. We've watched a bunch of this guy. We continue to. What's the difference between a mordant and a trill? And how many of you accordion players play Baroque music on your accordion?
Hi, this is Robert Estrin at livingpianos.com. Today the question is, what is the difference between a mordant and a trill? Interestingly, they look so similar on the page, and you usually find these in Baroque era music of Handel, Bach, Scarlatti, and composers of that period of time. And I want to show you there's one specific difference that's very important. The beginning of the Fifth French Suite, the Sarabande movement, starts with a mordant. And if I played it without the mordant, because it has a mordant, then it has a trill on the same note shortly after, I'm going to play it. Actually, it's not the same note, but it's right after, so you get a chance to hear a mordant and a trill. I'm going to play the beginning without the ornamentation, just the very, very beginning of this. And then I'm going to show you what a mordant is and how it differs from a trill in two interesting ways. So that's playing the beginning without any ornamentation. But Bach wrote a mordent on the first note on that B. And the secret to a mordent is you add the note below and then go back to the note that's written. So when you have a B, you're going to play B, A, B like this. So what's different about a trill? Well, in the next section, just right after that, you have a trill. Now, if this was another mordent, you'd go, but trills start on the upper note. Typically, trills can have more than just one or two notes. There's a freedom of expression. In fact, the whole Baroque era is noted by its ornamentation. By the way, this isn't just through music. Look at the architecture and the art of that period. It's noted for the filigree, all the beautiful fine detail. Ornamentation is an opportunity for the performer to add their own expressive element. That's why you listen to different performances of the same exact pieces of Bach or Handel, Telemann, and other Baroque composers. The ornamentation could be quite different. So here's how it sounds now. Remember the first time I played it without any ornamentation, it sounded like this. So now I'm going to play with the first note with the ornament, the mordent, and then the next note with the trill, and it sounds like this. So you got to watch for those squiggly lines. The mordent has one less. The trill has more lines going up and down in the score. It's kind of a deciphering a code. Interestingly, different performers have different ideas about what these squiggly lines and turns and all of this mean, because we don't really know what people played hundreds of years ago, do we? There's many, many books written on the subject, and ultimately it's up to you as a performer to play something that you...
Very cool. Thanks, Robert Estrin. There's a couple other fun ones. Let's see. Here's... Oh, yeah, this is a good one. Baroque versus Romantic trills. This I thought was cool. It's a longer video by Bach Scholar. Wonderful videos.
Hello, Corey from the Bach Scholar YouTube channel. Thank you for joining me today. This is an interesting video I have for you in which I'm going to compare trills in Bach and Chopin. Bach's trills are what I refer to as Baroque trills, of course, because it's from the Baroque period. And Chopin's trills are what I would refer to as romantic trills. I mean, there might be a better term for that, but I just happen to call them romantic trills. So how does a Baroque trill differ from a romantic trill? Okay, let's look at this and let's choose some pieces that would demonstrate this most clearly. So I have three pieces here. I have one piece of Chopin, two pieces from Bach. And I think this will be enough just for an introduction into the topic.
Yeah.
So, if you have the Chopin nocturnes, take out Opus 37, number 1 in G minor. That beautiful nocturne there. Also, if you have the aria to the Goldberg variations. Take that out if you have the sheet music for that. And then one more piece, the G minor prelude from Book 1 of the Well-Tempered Cosmos was the first way I played it was what's called a measure and describe how. So let's look first at Bach's aria from the Goldberg variations. I'm going to play a few measures here.
And the trills are not too fast, just like Casals said. Slow tempo,
Okay.
slow trills.
Now I'm going to play it another way, and I want to see if you can hear the difference. See if you can describe how I do it differently now.
I would say more trills and faster on that.
What was the difference?
That's what I would
The
say.
difference was that the measure of the trill, measure 3, the trill, which goes for about 1.5 beats, was the first way I played it was what's called a measured trill. I was playing exactly with 30-second notes in the right hand. 1 and 2 and 3 and. So they're exact 30-second notes. Second way, I didn't measure them at all. I just sort of did whatever I wanted. So I started the trill a little slow. That's just a mordant right there, but the trill starts, it has this little hook on the top in Bach, and then it has the trill. What Bach and other Baroque influencers, I guess, they weren't influencers, but Baroque influencers during Bach's time, have us believing that the trills should be measured. Because you know those trill, the trill tables we always see all the time?
Oh yeah?
They have them measured. So apparently, if that's correct, Bach wanted his trills measured.
Okay.
He probably didn't go. He probably did not play a romantic trill, just simply because the tables of ornaments during Bach's time, if you look at those, they're all measured. They all.
This is cool. Very fascinating. Nevertheless, we're going to continue on, but I find all this Baroque ornamentation stuff to be really interesting, as did somebody else that's a big name historically in the world of American accordion, which is Willard Palmer of the Palmer and Hughes. I had occasion to play a gig actually in Easton, Pennsylvania, which is very close to the city that I live in now. This was years ago, way back in, 2010 or something like that. I don't remember how they found me, but it was I don't know, somebody's, maybe a wedding, very, very small, like maybe it was the rehearsal dinner for a wedding or something. And what was really interesting is that two of the people there had, one of the persons there I think was an ex-wife of Willard Palmer, I think. Oh man, I wish I remember this more. Anyways, they knew him, and they told me that in addition to being really into accordion, he was also an expert on Baroque ornamentation, which is really fascinating. Maybe there's some sort of, I don't know, genetic similarity that those of us who play accordion are interested in. Let's see, what else do I have here? So I'm not going to go through this, but in the chapter there are descriptions from Casals on like sort of rules of how to apply ornaments or how to apply trills in the case of Baroque music, which I think is pretty interesting. There's another video that I found really cool that I want to watch that is a little diversion. It's only related in the sense that it's about Baroque ornamentation, but it's not about trills, nor is it about anything specifically stated. In that chapter, it's this one. I thought this was great, and this is a really cool
the one that's kind of related.
Yeah, this is cool. I like this guy. David Watkin. I like his vibe and his playing, and I like this channel. Oops, you're not saying it. Sorry. Here's the channel. Let me show you the channel. The channel is called Nicola Benedetti. And Nicola is not featured in all of these videos, so I don't know really what's the deal. One of the most sought-after violinists of her generation. She won a Grammy for Best Classical Instrumental Solo. Dedicated educator and advocate for music education. She founded the Benedetti Foundation. And there's really phenomenal videos here, in my opinion and experience, on this channel. So thanks, Nicola. We're gonna watch this one with David.
The one that's kind of related.
Watkin. And this is cool. This is not about trills or mordants. It's about other stuff, which I didn't really know about. But listening to Baroque music, which I really love Baroque harpsichord music. And so I have occasion to listen to a lot of that. Some other stuff, I hear this stuff and go, oh, wow, that's improvised? Or that's, you can kind of do something different. I didn't know that you were allowed to do that.
So we've talked about different types of weakness and softness, dynamic variation, agogic variation, and we've talked about articulation, connecting our words in our sentence to build a longer phrase. I want to talk more now about the act of decoration or the act of ornamentation. Bach inherited, if you like, essentially three different types of ornamentation. The first one, what we tend to think of as soon as we hear the word ornamentation, is French ornamentation, where you can write it with a little TR that means trill, or a little wiggle that means mordant, or a wiggle with a line through it. It's the kind of thing you can write in a table of ornaments. So this kind of symbolic type of
which we
twiddly
did
ornamentation,
just look at it.
French ornamentation. Italian ornamentation, or Italianate ornamentation, is much more florid, and it much more becomes into the realm of recomposing. So, for instance, at the beginning of Corelli's Opus 5 sonatas for violin, cello, or harpsichord, he does this really cool little Italian ornament at the end that really kind of sets out his stall for what the rest of his book of 12 sonatas, Opus 5, is going to look like. So this idea, that simple idea becomes. So he's done a scale, but he hasn't just done a scale, he's turned it into a kind of ski jump, almost like a Galamian scale. And he's gone to the seventh, and then down a seventh to down to chord, remember chord 4, which is our. So that's our dominant. So it's a melodic ornament, but he's also taking it into the harmonic realm. Almost in a very, very casual way. Now, at the back of that book of Corelli Opus 5 sonatas, you can see the sonatas as played by Corelli. And I love the idea that he was playing all these very, very fast, florid runs of scales and arpeggios, and somebody was there with a chisel and a sheet of copper trying to engrave it as he wrote. Of course, because they didn't do that. But just as jazz musicians now will listen to each other's solos and write them out, transcribe their florid improvisations, that's exactly what violinists were doing with Corelli's Opus 5 sonatas. One, as Nicholas Cook puts it in his wonderful book Beyond the Score, it's almost that the only thing you couldn't do with those sonatas was play them exactly as written. You would have to ornament them and decorate them in some way.
Pretty cool.
So that's Italian ornamentation. I'm going to talk a little bit now about another more simple style of ornamentation that was very important to Bach. And it's the idea that if I'm just decorating a G.
This is so great, but we have about 5 minutes left in the stream, and I'm just going to kind of continue. I got a couple more brief things to touch on to close out this chapter. And but this is a great video, and if that was interesting, I definitely suggest you watch and the rest of that video and more stuff on the channel. Very, very cool. Good stuff. So, okay, to my notes. That was about that. Just a few more things. So, things that are nice to understand about Casals. Glissandi, which is something that like is a very, very specific sound on the accordion. To me, it sounds very much of a couple decades of accordion sound, and some genres and styles within those decades, 50s, 60s sort of stuff. but extends to more stuff. And Casals used glissandi much more than written, we're told in the book, and often when going from a low note to a high note. And he said, well, if you sing it, it's going to come out like that. Like, follow how you would sing it. Bum. Okay. So that's about glissandi. And then, all right, so there was a distinguishing feature of Casals' style, and something that I think he was like one of the first, or the first to do or popularize or do at such a high level that people were like, well, I got to do that. And Casals recommend playing the piano on the cello. And to describe that, we're going to watch a little bit of Casals playing and just watch his left hand specifically to see if we can sort of see that. Not being cellists, I don't really fully understand this, but it's described as really pressing firmly of the fretting hand, the hand that's, choosing where the note is, and pressing really firmly to both get the impact of that sound. That's an additional sound that we hear, or that we can hear, and also to build strength and dexterity. So both in the performance and also in practicing. So it says Casals recommended playing the piano and the cello, normally releasing one finger when the next was placed down there by allowing the left hand to remain flexed. And then from the author, from David Bloom, it says, in his fundamental revision of cello, Casals had introduced a revolutionary series of extensions which rendered many shifts obsolete and at the same time opened new expressive possibilities. That's pretty cool, how the importance of Casals, in addition to being an interpreter, he really expanded the technique for players. And there's other things in this chapter that other people talking about Casals, just, his, apparently the amount of distance and control you have to have on the cello is very challenging. And to do what's asked of you, to play all this stuff, which really covers a lot of ground, and Casals did that better than anybody. And this idea of the fretting, I guess you don't call it would you call it fretting? I'm not sure. Are you fretting, or is a fret a thing? I don't know. But he encouraged for students to practice the parts of their music and scales and exercises with no bow. So only doing this, not plucking, but only fretting and pressing so that you can hear the sound that it's making. And it's described in that chapter as the hammer drop style of his left hand. So let's watch a little bit of Casals here and see if we can notice. We're just going to watch for his left hand and see if we can listen for the sound of that, or just watch it and see if we see it. Need to go to this one here.
Now, I will play
This is awesome. He's probably 80 here, 80 years old, because he died at like 98 or something. Watch his left hand. That's a good place to pause. Beautiful. Just gorgeous. And we hear a lot of those things. The use of diminuendo, the varying speeds of the vibrato, the tremolo, just the dynamics inside of the phrases, each character changing. Yeah, so expressive. All right. Let's see. The last little bits of things to share here. There's a few more. Here's something that's in the chapter that I thought was pretty interesting for us as accordionists. Shopping for instruments and like, oh, I like the timbre. This one's great. Oh, this is my favorite accordion. This is my favorite accordion I ever had. I missed this accordion. Oh, so-and-so's accordion sounds so good. So they say that he was offered like really amazing instruments, but all the time he didn't. He preferred not to succumb to the allure of a readily enchanting sonority, which is a very florid way of saying it, but he said, I want to have to fight for my expression. He didn't want to get too caught up in, I guess, the natural timbre, sound quality of the instrument. I don't completely understand that, but the idea that, like, you know, I don't know, that's my understanding of the words that were written there. He talks about how to play vibrato, which I pulled some stuff out for. Let's see. Relaxation. This is good because this ties into, like, I'm going to do that accordion yoga group class starting in September it'll be ready for sign up by the next time I live stream, which is Tuesday the 15th, I think. So Casals was always interested in relaxation and relieving the tension. So here's some quotes I'll read from the book. Casals always stressed the importance of avoiding rigidity of the hand or bow arm. And then a direct quote, he gave close attention to finding every possible opportunity to relax the hand during the course of a performance, even for the duration of a semiquaver. Semiquaver, I think, would be a 16th note. That's the English, I think, how in England they say, they don't say quarter note, eighth note. And I found a video on that, but we don't have the time to watch that. And then talking about like playing from a sense of relaxation, repose, comfort. Here's a quote attributed to Casals. What is ugly is bad. What is beautiful is good. I don't know if that should have made it into the book, but whatever. So that's supposed to be kind of lumped in with this. And then he credited his ease in playing to a feeling of repose emanating from the center of his body, which brought the movement of the extremities into natural integration. This image was very much his own and highly intuitive. It derived from no preconceived theory. That's super cool. That's just something he did, but me, I got to think about it and watch it and have people help me and show you what I want to do. And then also here, what others may seek through the practice of certain exercises in yoga, Casals experienced instinctively. So I thought, aha. There we go. I'll end by this long quote from the book, a direct quote from the author. It's kind of summing up Casals' cello playing. Those who had heard Casals play will forever be haunted by the quintessential purity of his tone. Forever haunted. That's pretty cool. There was a ring, like that of some exquisite bell, which emanated from the center of every note he played. His immaculate, inspired bow, arm, vitality of finger, and taste were contributing elements. That his tone was more the sum of these parts, and its frankness and clarity, it seemed, the very material embodiment of the openness of the man's spirit, the testament of his faith and his communication with music. All beauty was concentrated at the essence, requiring no extraneous effort towards loveliness, and revealed that stage of achievement with which Alfred Einstein has referred to as the second simplicity, a fullness of brevity, the attainment of great masters. So I butchered that a little bit, but I'm not the best at reading. But yeah, high praise, obviously from the author, no surprise. if you love the guy enough to write a beautiful book like this, you're going to think his playing is over the moon. But I think those words do great justice to him. I just want to finish just briefly saying, let's see, because I think this is cool too, just to share. Ended on this and a final plug. So how the book club is affecting me. So this past week, I found myself I'm doing more and more audiating, and my ear is getting better. And I'm finding that my audiating and what I'm singing, I'm finding more of these expressive components, which is like, duh, of course that's going to happen. But it is happening, which is very cool. And one thing that I'm finding, last week was about rhythm. And what I'm finding is that I'm feeling rhythm in a slightly different way sometimes. So just with this, writing this little chiron, I was able to sort of like start to tease it out, state it. So rhythm inside the sound versus sound on the rhythm. Rhythm inside the sound versus sound on the rhythm. So if I'm thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, that would be rhythm inside the sound. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And in that you get, not only do you get rhythm, you get like motion or movement or direction, right? Direction of 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's something that I'm very new to paying attention to, feeling it, and thinking of the melody and the way the melody is played as having a rhythm in that way. It's not that I never thought about rhythm of melody. It's something I thought about a lot, but differently. So the way I would think prior to this, and this kind of relates to the, what's his name? That bass player who makes those great videos. Him talking about locking into a pulse, stuff like that. That would be sound on the rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 4. That the thing that I'm feeling is something that's sort of this pulse, and I'm putting the melody also on top of it. Versus 1, 2, 3, 4. So I can't say too much more about it than that because I don't really know. It seems like a very new idea. But nevertheless, the rhythm part of it is starting to get in there too. This is fun. Such a fun thing. So I'm going to wrap up the live stream there. Thank you all. If you're watching it live, thanks for joining me. If you're watching this on the replay, thanks for joining me also. And you can always catch it live. I'll finish by plugging the group classes one more time. You can sign up if you want. The sign up is live for both of these, Beginning Beautifully and Slow Blues. Group classes happening in September and October. And then the accordion yoga class sign up will be live next week. And then in late November or middle November and December is going to be the Jazz Up Your Christmas Music. The sign-up isn't ready yet, but just to give you an idea of what's ahead. Join me for really fun group classes. Join me next week. Have a great week, and I hope your life is filled with abundance and joy and good luck.